We'll count down for where that starts.
Okay, sure.
Brilliant. Okay, so that's that started. Okay, so great. So thanks to everyone for coming, and particularly thanks to you, Nicola, to kind of giving up your time to do this. So, and this is the advantage of the virtual world, actually, because obviously you're based in Lancaster, and I can't imagine you would have travelled all the way down to Islington to deliver a sort of hour's presentation. So yeah, it's fantastic. This is a real opportunity for us over the last few months to build up these links with Lancaster Medical School. So it's been been really great sort of getting to know you. So students, you are muted, but if the chat is open and you know how this works, so if you've got a question, obviously put it in the chat. I think you can still raise your hands if you're absolutely desperate to ask a question in speak and ask a question. I can unmute you, but otherwise we'll just use the chat function. So yeah, we're scheduled to last about an hour, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. So great. So I'm going to hand over to you, Nicola.
Oh, thanks, Jo. Okay, everyone. So today might be, well, I'm hoping that you'll be able to contribute to this discussion as well at points. And so I'll be asking you to type in the chat if that's all right. But so my name's Dr. Nicola Phillips. I am a teaching fellow and admissions tutor at Lancaster Medical School. So this means that I do some teaching for the medical school. So I mainly teach first years and second years, and also students who are studying on our Gateway to Medicine year, which is like a pre-year. That's fine, Natalie. My admissions tutor role means that I read applications from potential students who want to study medicine, and I think about whether or not they would be suited to studying medicine at Lancaster University. So if you're thinking about studying medicine, or if you're thinking about studying on any healthcare kind of professional course, you'll know that it's different to studying for a normal degree. So a normal degree, you would apply with your A-levels or your BTEC qualifications, and the university would really mainly focus on those to decide whether or not to give you a place to study with them. Whereas for medicine and other professional kind of courses, we're thinking about your ability to study, so your academics or your academic profile, but we're also thinking about kind of the person that you are and the skills that you have. And so this is what the focus of today's talk is going to be about, is about the skills required to work specifically for becoming a doctor, but lots of these will be transferable to other professions. How you might get those in times of a pandemic when it's difficult to get work experience. So why do we want you to to be able to demonstrate these other skills? So if you're entering the medical profession and you gain a license to become a doctor, it means that you're held in a position in society which is kind of respected and trusted. So you need to be a trustworthy person. So ethically, medical schools need to check that our applicants are the sort of people who we think would be able to hold one of those positions. But also, as I said before, it's not just about your knowledge of science and the body and kind of what goes wrong with it and how to treat it. It's how you interact with people and how you respect people that's also really important. And so we're looking at a variety of qualities from our candidates, and we have to design an admissions process which allows us to assess those. So if I was at your stage of your life and thinking about studying for medicine or studying to enter into another healthcare profession, these are the things that I would be doing if I was you now, if you're in the lower sixth or year 12. So first of all, I'd be thinking about researching what the career is. So what it's like to be a doctor, a nurse, a paramedic, whatever subject you're thinking of studying for. And that's important because it enables you, because these are difficult professions, it's a complicated admissions process, and you need to demonstrate these skills. You need to have an understanding about what the job's actually like, what it entails, and what you'll get up to on a day-to-day basis, and therefore what skills are required to do that. But also you need to be thinking about, for medical schools, which ones you want to apply to, and I'll talk a little bit about this at the end, so how you might think about making those decisions, or at least the things to consider. Because there are lots of medical schools, and so there'll also be lots of places you could study nursing, midwifery, paramedics, those kinds of things. But the way they deliver their teaching will be different. So it's important that you think about, that you at least understand how the universities you apply to will deliver their teaching, and therefore whether or not you think you would get on well, you know, you'd be successful with that mode of delivery. And then also you need to think about what medical schools can you apply to, because medical schools have strict admissions criteria, and they are all different. So it's not the same. So if you apply to one, you might not have the qualifications or skills to get into another. But just because you aren't eligible to apply to one doesn't rule you out from all medical schools. So you just have to look through them. Okay. So then that's your research side. So things you can do through looking stuff up on the internet and also talking to other people about it. But also you need to gain some experience. And so the experience is to start developing the skills required to work as a healthcare professional. So to see how other healthcare professionals work, and therefore start to kind of evaluate yourself and your own skills and start thinking about what you need to work on to be a better healthcare provider. To understand the career a little bit more, so understand the highs and the lows of the career, the pressures that are put upon you, and how the organisations work together, and all the people who work within the healthcare profession work together to give effective patient care. And then finally, to kind of really consider whether or not it's the career for you, because it's a big decision, especially if you're applying to medicine. It's 5 to 6 years of study on your university degree, and then it's 2 years of study as a foundation doctor, where you're working as a doctor, but you're rotating around different placements in different hospitals within an area. And then you have to apply to join your specialism, and then you can go between 3 to 7 years of study and practicing those skills, working in that specialism as a trainee before you qualify as a consultant for that position. So it's a big undertaking, and so you don't want to make these decisions lightly. But it's an excellent career. It's incredibly rewarding. You're helping people, and I think lots of people who enter the medical profession say that they're satisfied with their career, that it's what they wanted. So what I'm going to do today is focus on how to find out what it's like to be a doctor, so what you need to do, where you can find resources to do that. We won't be able to cover all of it today. And then also how to gain experience when we're in the middle of a pandemic, but hopefully coming out of at least lockdowns shortly. So first of all, this is when I want you to join in. So can you please think about when you've been to see a doctor, or when someone in your family has gone to see a doctor? What do you want from that experience with the doctor? What types of skills do you think they should possess in order for you to feel happy talking to them about your health? So if you start writing in the chat now, that would be really helpful. Just basic things. What do you want them to be like? So should be understanding, respectful and kind, informative and compassionate. Yeah, so Alexi and Dilla, thanks for those. Anyone else, please just join in. So understanding, respectful and kind. So understanding, and compassionate, they come into the same thing. So this is kind of your personality, isn't it? So and kind and respectful, they're aspects that show you have empathy, that you appreciate the person for who they are, and you are non-judgmental when they come along. So think about, is this something that's innate to a person, or can you develop these skills? So I think you can develop them, and you would need to be thinking about how can you demonstrate those skills then to say an admissions tutor like me. So informative sort of seems to say that they have some knowledge, and so it would be that you go and speak to a doctor and they they are a source of knowledge for you. You can tell them about your symptoms and they will think about those symptoms and be able to then talk to you about what they think might be up with your health, and then ways that perhaps you could start to work out how to help you. So Adama, thank you. Trustworthy and honest, yeah, really important. So trustworthy and honest, you're telling a doctor about really personal details about yourself, which you might not talk to anyone about. And so you need to be able to trust that they'll respect what you're saying to them, don't you? And also that it's confidential, that they're not going to talk to anyone else about that information. And so lots of things here about kind of, yeah, empathetic and confident. Thanks, Adam. So all types of things to talk about kind of the personality and their interaction with you, their knowledge and understanding, and that you can trust them and that they're honest. So let's go on from here. Thanks very much for joining in then. So here's some things that I thought, you know, I want my doctor to be like. So like you said, trustworthy, a good listener, caring. So we spoke about those kinds of things. So a good listener's communication skills, isn't it? So that you feel it's not just that they're taking in the information that you're giving them, but it's that you understand that they are listening to you and they're hearing everything you're saying, not just picking out the information that they want. Also, it goes the other way, that they're able to communicate to you quite complicated information, which might be upsetting for you, in a way that is supportive and understanding. So what else have we got on here? So we had knowledgeable, excellent, and good practical skills. I guess that comes in. If they're performing an examination on you, you want them to know what they're doing. They're not going to hurt you, and they're going to get the information they need, especially if the examination they're performing on you is awkward for you, which sometimes it might be. And so some other things that we didn't get. So perhaps resilience and calm. So say most of my interactions with medical professionals have been sort of through my GP. And so it's kind of a calm situation anyway, but I recently gave birth and that was more stressful. And so when you're giving birth or when something is happening which is kind of quite full on, you want the medical professionals around you to be calm in those situations so that you're reassured, so you don't panic. So that's really important. I guess doctors should think about, so with any kind of medical professional career, there will be highs. So yeah, my baby was born and he was healthy and that was great, but there's also going to be lows. So sometimes those births won't be successful. Sometimes patients will die. Sometimes you'll be really stressed at work when you're working in healthcare, especially at the moment. You'll have seen it a lot in the news. There's a lot of pressure on at the moment. Lots of people dying from this, from COVID-19. And so how, as a medical profession or a medical professional, do you kind of cope with that pressure, with those kind of emotional forces which might really get to you? So we're looking for applicants who have some kind of resilience, who are able to pick themselves back up, or at least able to seek help. They're open to seeking help and support when they need it. Okay, so these are kind of my thoughts on it. You can, if you're thinking about joining the medical profession, and so this is for medicine, which these kind of resources. The Medical Schools Council, the MSC, is a great place to start looking for help, for information about what it's like to be a doctor and also how to apply to medicine. So this picture I've got on this slide here is just a screenshot of an info sheet, and so this is about what makes a good doctor. So they're 2-page sheets available on the Medical Schools Council website for lots of different things. I'll show you those websites at the end. But lots of different aspects. In fact, every aspect of applying to study medicine, there's a help sheet for. And this is to make medicine more open and transparent so that we get applications from people from all parts of society, from all walks of life. And because historically, most of the applications for medicine were from people whose parents or family worked within medicine, which meant there was always a certain type of person who continue to study medicine. And we really need our medical profession to represent the whole of society, because the whole of society goes to see their doctors. Okay, so think about going onto the Medical Schools Council website to get help with these aspects of what makes a good doctor. So here's a summary slide then of what Lancaster University has taken. So we've had to think about what we think applicants need to demonstrate in order to in order for us to consider their application. So you can see the second one from the bottom, academically able. So there are strict admissions criteria for access to medicine for applying to medicine at Lancaster University. And so you need to check those. I have them, but I'm not going to talk about them today, but I can talk to you about them at the end if you would like to know what those are. But also all the other aspects then, not the academically able, are all kind of skills which you can't demonstrate with grades. So a well-rounded individual, and by that we mean someone who can demonstrate that they're not just about studying, that they've experience of the world, that they've experienced with their family, their friends, and that that they've gained skills, therefore, other skills than just being able to study. So like you said, we want you to demonstrate that you're thoughtful, caring and compassionate, because they're the types of people that we all seem to want to be our doctors. We want someone like that. We want applicants who can show that they're insightful, that they have insight into their own behaviours, their own attitudes, their own strengths and their own weaknesses, because you need to be honest as a medical professional. You need to understand your limitations, and you need to accept that you're not going to be great at everything all the time, and that you're going to need more training and support. But you need to be open to that. You can't hide that and just ignore aspects of the work that you don't think you're very good at because you don't want to mess up. If you can't do something, you need to be able to speak to people and get help to improve. So it's kind of your attitude to yourself that we're looking for there. So values, we need to understand what your values are in healthcare. So we had someone saying respectful. So are you respectful of everyone in society? And how would you show that? Do you understand what the values of the NHS are? And can we talk to you about those? And do you want to work within a profession that has those values? So then we have motivated and conscientious and resilient. So I spoke to you about resilient before, but also motivated and conscientious. When you're studying for any kind of healthcare profession, you have your theoretical studies as well as your practical studies. So you're learning on campus for part of your studies, and depending on the degree you select and which university you go to, that the amount of time you spend on campus studying will differ. But you're also spending a lot of time on placement in hospitals, in other healthcare settings, in order to do your training. And so because you've got this kind of dual aspect to your learning, you need to be very motivated to keep each side up, because it's quite full on. So medical schools, so the amount of information that you have to learn each year, it's a lot. And so you need to be able to study hard, to be motivated to, once you've finished your placements, to get home, have your tea, and then do some more work to write up your experience from that day, reflect on the patients that you saw, and then get ready to study the next day when you're going onto campus. So those were Lancaster's ideas about what we're looking for in medical applicants, but actually each medical school, as I said, is slightly different, annoyingly, if you're trying to apply for medicine. But on the Medical Schools Council, there is a resource which, so you see this button that I've got on here, the values attributes needed to study medicine. So that's a link that you can click and you will download what's on the right of your screen now, a statement on the core values and attributes needed to study medicine. This is a big document, but if you're thinking about studying medicine, this is a good one probably to read. So it splits out all of the values that all of the medical schools have determined are important, and the Medical Schools Council has determined are important, and it breaks those down for you. So you could just sort of tackle reading it and do sort of 10 minutes each time. Okie dokie. So how do you get these skills, and how will you demonstrate that you have these skills, attributes and values if you in your application to study medicine, but also in your interview if you're invited to interview at a medical school? So first of all, I'm just going to talk about what we're looking for in work experience, and often this is something that applicants get confused about, that they think we're looking for an amount of experience to demonstrate the skills, but we're not looking for an amount. It's not a tick box exercise where you can say, well, I've had 40 hours of experience in this place, and then I had 20 hours over here, and therefore I'm qualified. It's about what you've learnt from the experience, how you've reflected upon that experience, and how you then sort of think about yourself and where you are on the scale of getting ready to study medicine or becoming a doctor. So we ask you to have experience in a caring or service role with people, particularly those who are ill, disabled or disadvantaged. So a caring or a service role, that's not experience in a hospital, is it? Yeah, it's not specifically asking for hospital experience or GP experience. It's saying, have you worked in a role where you are interacting with members of the public, particularly those who might be vulnerable? So this could be working with children in a school. This could be working in a care home with the elderly and just having a chat with them. So it's not that you have to do the medical, understand in depth the medical procedures. We're trying to get from this experience whether or not you are that caring and compassionate person that we're hoping for in our applicants, whether or not you are trustworthy, and whether or not through working in those experiences and in those settings that you've developed, say, your communication skills or your teamwork skills, or you've gained an insight into the type of person who's working there and what skills they have which make them good at their job. So from this experience, what we want to see is that you have a realistic understanding of what practicing medicine is like, so that you're not going into, you don't want to become a doctor because your parents want you to, or because you think, oh, it'll be really great, or I'll earn lots of money, that you have a real understanding of what it's like to work within a medical or healthcare setting. The second is that you've experience of a caring role, and so that's to demonstrate that you kind of you have those skills already, that you're the type of person who can work in those roles, because not everyone can. Also for you, it's, do you want to work in a caring role? Do you want to be cleaning up poo, pee, sick, that kind of stuff? Is that all right for you? Because if it isn't, you probably don't want to work in a healthcare setting. There's lots of other careers which will still be interesting and that you could go into. And then finally, that you have the attitudes and behaviours essential to being a doctor. So the types of things that I've already spoken about. So you use your examples from your experience to do that. So this is just a link, but again, that's on the Medical Schools Council. So there's some guidance on getting experience during times of a pandemic, which I'll show you in a minute. So it's currently pretty difficult to get work experience, physical work experience in a healthcare setting. But everyone is in the same position as you, and medical schools and all of the other professional kind of courses available at universities all understand what's happening at the moment and appreciate how difficult it will be for you to get into a healthcare setting. So think about whether or not there are any voluntary roles available to you. So it could be befriending. This could be via telephone or e-befriending, so over the internet, perhaps helping out with a food bank, doing collections for them, or delivering or dropping off food to those who are vulnerable. Or you could perhaps join the NHS volunteers. And I've popped this picture up here. This is Lucy Gotter, who was on our foundation year course last year. Lucy's brilliant. She worked or volunteered in a care home before she came to university to get some experience of caring. And so during the pandemic, when all the students went home, she volunteered with them again, and here she is volunteering to help out in this care home. And actually it was pretty tough for her because lots of the residents who she got to know passed away. And so this is a tough thing for someone to experience when they're just about to start their first year of medicine, but it's helped her out a lot. Understanding how things, how healthcare works during times of a pandemic has given her a greater understanding about the profession she's entering into. So although it's been really tough for her, she's really appreciated that experience. But this was just care home work. She didn't get experience working with doctors. It was always with nurses and with healthcare professionals within the elderly care setting, but that's enough for her to understand what the profession was like and what it's like to care for people who are vulnerable. So there's other resources that are important, but as I said before, it's not the amount of experience that you get that's important. It's how you reflect upon the experience. And so over here, we've got the Royal College of GPs. They've prepared a reflection diary that you can download, which asks you questions to think about for any experiences that you've got, that you can then start to think about, what did you learn, what did you observe, and what did that mean to you? And so if you do manage to get any physical in-person work experience, or any experience which is virtual or over the phone, jot down your thoughts about each day, about the conversations you had, about what it made you reflect about what you're good at yourself and what you'd need to work on in order to get better at that caring role. So one thing that working within or getting work experience within the healthcare profession would give you is some knowledge of how the NHS works, or how social care works, if that's where you get the experience. And that's important because it will show you about the values of the NHS, also the structure of the NHS, how all of the different aspects of the NHS come together and talk to each other, sometimes not brilliantly, but they should all work together in order to give effective patient care. But also, as I said before, that there are many different professions and professionals within the NHS who all have to communicate and work together as a team in order to provide effective patient care. So if you can't get experience in an NHS setting, then how do you find this knowledge? Well, you can look it up on the internet, and so that's okay. If you were invited into interview and you didn't have experience in a healthcare setting, but you could talk to us about your knowledge, you're showing us that you're motivated to learn, aren't you? You're motivated to find out about the organisation you're hoping to join. So just start looking things up. So here on this slide, I've got so some of the NHS core values: commitment to quality of care, respect and dignity, compassion, improving lives, working together for patients, and everyone counts. So if you look up the NHS website, each of those topics will have a set of information explaining what the NHS is talking about when they're using those words. And so you need to have some understanding of that before you apply to medicine and before you come and are interviewed. And that goes for any of the professions. You need to understand these core values of the NHS. But you don't have to be working or having work experience in the NHS to gain these. So here are some examples of what you can do now. If you're unable to get physical work experience, what can you do? So first of all, Medical Schools Council website. So this picture here, that's the statement that they've made to help people thinking about studying medicine and how they can get work experience in the pandemic. So go onto that website and download that and have a read. And so the Royal College of GPs, or the RCGP, they have produced some virtual work experience called Observe GP, where you can go and watch consultations and see what the GP does, and then there's some reflective exercises afterwards. And so lots of our applicants this year had done Observe GP and spoke about that at their interview, and that was absolutely fine because that was all that was available to them. I think that's a fantastic resource even when we come out of the pandemic, because lots of applicants can't get into a hospital or a medical care setting to get experience. They will be working in a food bank or for St John's for like a hospice or things like that, and so they won't have this understanding of what a doctor does because they won't have observed a doctor. So this will be good anyway. So BSMS is Brighton and Sussex Medical School. They have created some virtual work experience, which is to make sure that people from a background where they don't know any doctors, where it's more difficult for them to gain work experience, which is most people, that they aren't disadvantaged by the fact that their family doesn't contain a doctor. So they've created some virtual work experience. You can register to join that course. You get a certificate at the end of it. And again, this will give you a better understanding about what it is to become a doctor, but also it will help you understand what it's like to work in the medical profession. And it's something you can talk to us about in your personal statement and also at interview. So you'll know, because of what's happening at the moment, that the NHS, about patient care, it's all in the news. So every aspect of medicine has been in the news, I'd say, over the last year. And so read the newspaper, download an app to get a newspaper on your phone, go onto Twitter and follow different news places or Royal College of GPs or other professional bodies so that you can see what's important at the moment. This gives you a greater understanding about the NHS and how it fits into public life. So blogs, Twitter, websites, documentaries can be pretty helpful. So there are some which are quite dramatic, like One Born Every Minute, where it's all kind of drama and loud music, and they're probably not the ones that are going to give you much of an insight into the NHS. But some documentaries actually are really good at showing you what it's really like, you know, warts and all. So Ambulance, 24 Hours in A&E and the hospital, and those are all great documentaries or series that you can watch to get a better understanding about the NHS. And then finally, there's a couple of podcasts which will help you out. So Inside Health and Inside the Ethics Committee, and then this podcast will kill you. So if you've got a podcast, if you've got something you can listen to podcasts on, then try downloading those and listen to those, which talk through different topics, current affairs and things like that to do with health. Okay, so there is lots of places where you can gain knowledge and experience of what it's like to become a doctor. So then the things that you need to do, so developing that caring side of yourself, those communications, you'll need to develop somewhere else, so not in a healthcare setting. Oh, finally, before I move on to that, if you are from a widening participation background, and so this differs from university to university, but for us, it will be to do with your family income. It could be to do with the schools that you've attended. It could be to do with whether or not you're first in your family to go to university. So that's your parents haven't been to university as a student straight after school, not if they studied as a mature student, that doesn't count, just if they went straight on to higher education after they finished their schooling. And there are other aspects, so if you were in care, if you're a recipient of free school meals, those kinds of things, or student bursaries, you might be eligible to apply for some widening participation schemes at universities. So we run these, but also lots of different universities run these for all aspects of the NHS. So we have something called Access to Medicine, and we also have summer schools. They're all virtual at the moment, but it will give you a better idea about what studying at university is like if you were studying medicine. And then there's also the NHS runs experience days and careers fairs, and some of that will move online as well. So go onto your local trust pages, so Google where you live and also working for the NHS, and have a look at their websites and see what they're suggesting in your local area. I think a lot of this will move online, but there might be stuff over the summer that you can get access to that becomes available as the number of cases of COVID drop down. The thing to remember is this isn't a tick box exercise, and so how can you make it not a tick box exercise and make it kind of develop those skills at the same time? So something I'd suggest that you do, so the people who are here, is maybe form a discussion group. It could be a virtual discussion group where you set up a Teams meeting. Think about something that you're going to each watch each week, or read if there's an article in the newspaper, or listen to, say, one of those podcasts, and then come together and discuss what you've learned from that. This will help you if you have an interview for a healthcare profession, because it starts you talking about different aspects of healthcare with other people, which improves your communication skills. Working together as a group and getting other people's opinions also will help lots of skills. So it just kind of broadens your horizons. And this also will give you motivation to get some of this research done, because it's tough at the moment studying from home. And so you need something in your diary to make sure that you get these bits done, so you're not just leaving everything to the few weeks before your application's due in. Okay, so that's kind of how I would get experience if I was you. And so for the last little bit, I'm just going to talk about how medical schools assess your experience, so that you can kind of visualize why you're doing this and how you're sort of going to be, how you're going to talk to us about it in the end. So medical schools admissions processes are quite complex compared to applying for, say, a science degree at a university, as I mentioned to you before. So at Lancaster, we have 4 steps to our medical admissions processes. Other universities might do these things in a different order. I'm going to tell you about Lancaster's, and then the advice for every other university will be on their website. So it's when you need to go and look these things up. So first of all, we look for academic excellence. So we look at your GCSE scores. and then we look at your predicted grades for whatever assessments you're taking, so the A-level equivalents that you're taking. And there are certain subjects which are required, and then there are certain things which aren't accepted. So you need to check with each university to see whether the qualifications that you're taking are acceptable to them. We then use a medical admissions test, and we use the biomedical admissions test, the BMAT, as an independent indicator of academic ability. So because predicted grades often don't reflect candidates' actual grades that they achieve, we get our candidates to take an admissions test, and most medical schools will use an admissions test, one or the other. But you need to know that you have to take the one for the medical school you're applying to. They won't look at, so we don't look at UCAT scores, we don't have access to them, and we won't consider candidates who haven't taken the BMAT. Okay, so that's the academic criteria. So what about all of the other things that we're looking for? So those come out in your interview and in your personal statement. Some universities use personal statements as a way of assessing their candidates, but we don't, because we think it's too easily influenced by your parents, by your college that you've been to, if they have the time to help you write a statement. What we look for in a personal statement before we invite for interview is that you've had some work experience, that you are indicating that you want to be a doctor, and we look for any mitigating circumstances if, say, you're resitting your A-levels or if something went wrong with your GCSE. So we look for those kinds of things in there. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit then about personal statements and interviews now, and how we use those to assess these criteria. So your personal statement. So it should reflect your experience, skills and attributes relevant to medicine. So all these things that I was talking about, you need to kind of sum these up. What experience did you get which enabled you to get these skills, these values, these attributes, and what do you understand from them? So medical schools, as I've said, differ in their use of personal statements. Some use them a lot and some don't really look at them very much at all. And so you should look at the universities that you're shortlisting to decide which ones need the personal statement and what you need to include in that statement. It's really important that your personal statement is written by you, that it's a reflection on you and yourself, your values and your skills. And then it's honest, because we will speak to you about this if we invite you to interview. And if what you're saying doesn't seem to match what's in your statement because someone else helped you or wrote that statement for you, or you downloaded something online, it's going to come across really badly at interview. And so even if what you say at interview is a good reflection, because of that kind of disconnect between your statement and what you're saying, it's going to make the interviewer think, oh, are they trustworthy? Are they honest? And so it's really important that you just tell us about yourself. That's what we're really looking for in a medical admissions process. So for our personal statement, this is what we ask to be included, so that you demonstrate suitable evidence of relevant work experience. So you tell us where you did your work experience, but it's not a list, and you don't need to tell us the hours that you totted up. That you have insight into a medical career and your suitability, so that you understand what a career in medicine is like, and you can kind of match up the skills to your skills. And that you draw that from your experience, whether that's virtual or whether that's in person. That you have an understanding of the NHS constitution and core values, which you can look up if you're unable to get physical work experience in the NHS. That you have a commitment to society, that you're working for the benefit of others, including voluntary work or significant caring roles, because kind of that's the career that you're entering into, is a career where you put others before yourself. And that also that you have effective written communication skills and a well-structured personal statement, so that you've not rushed this, you've thought about it as you've put it together. But as I said, we don't grade you on this, we just read it to understand it, and then we might talk to you about it at interview. Other universities will ask for different things. So when you shortlist, so when you have your 4 universities for medicine that you're thinking of applying to, or whatever course you're going to, look up their admissions processes for each one, and then write down everything which is the same in the personal statements that they're asking for, and then everything that's different, to make sure then you can structure your personal statement to include all the information that you need. Okay, so that's personal statements. And then we're thinking about interviews. So interviews, at Lancaster is to assess your motivation. Why do you want to become a doctor? That you understand what the career is like, that we can see what kind of skills you have, your values and your attributes, and then we can assess your communication skills. And we do something called multiple mini interviews, which you might have already learned about if you've been researching these types of interviews, and other professional courses also use this style of interviews. So it's a bit like speed dating, if you've ever done that. It's not like you can do that in a pandemic. So there are different stations arranged in a room, or this year it was all online, so there were different Teams meetings which assess different skills, and at each station or in each Teams meeting there was a different assessor. Sometimes that was an academic like me, sometimes it was a clinician, so a medical professional, and sometimes it was a patient, and sometimes it was a current student. So different people all assessing those different attributes, skills and values that I spoke to you about before. You can see on this circuit that I've got up on this diagram that there are different colour squares. So the blue squares with numbers in are representative of assess station, where there is an assessor, an interviewer, who will be listening to what you say or watching what you do and marking you according to set criteria. There are also red stations, which are the preparation stations. So sometimes we'll give you a task to do in the 5 minutes before your station, your interview station, where you are given some questions or something to read and think about. And then you prep for that, for the interview, and you take those answers with you to the next station to discuss them. And then you can see here we also have break stations. So this is for the physical one. For the virtual one, we didn't need break stations so much, because there were more gaps in between each interview. But if you come in to be interviewed with us, there are break stations to give you a bit of a rest in the interview circuit, to try and make it, we want to see the best of you, and so we try not to put you under too much pressure, so that at each station you don't panic, you just kind of go, okay, I can get on with this. So here are some examples of some MMI stations, and here's Phyllis Connolly, who is one of our lecturers for communication. So she's a GP, and she teaches clinical kind of stuff for community, so GP work. So example MMI stations, we might give you a problem-based learning scenario for you to read and analyse, and then you discuss it at the next station. You might be put in a station with a member of the public and asked to just talk to them to demonstrate that you can communicate with people effectively. So all those skills, like listening skills, that you're able to reflect and think about what they're saying when you ask your questions, rather than just kind of follow a set line. We might ask you to read a short statement about an ethical issue in medicine and discuss. So this is, can you make decisions? Are you able to think about arguments from both sides for complicated issues? And can you be reasonable and adjust your thinking if you're challenged? And then finally, we might give you a short interview to understand your to probe your understanding of your career choice. So this is what we're talking about, all of your work experience and your research. So that would come into that interview station, where you kind of discuss with the person what you'd found out about it, and therefore why you want to become a doctor or a nurse or a paramedic, those kinds of things. Okay, so that's everything I want to talk to you about kind of the kind of work experience. So very briefly, I just want to talk to you about how to make your decision about what medical schools to apply to. So just one slide of what to think about. So medical schools, as I said, deliver their education differently according to kind of what their own focus is. These are the things, if I was you, that I would read up about for each university, and then you need to think about yourself and how you study and what your preference would be for learning. So the first is teaching methods. So is it a problem-based learning course like Lancaster? So this is a different style of teaching. Is it a mixed methods course where you have big lectures and then small group workshops and maybe some problem-based learning? Or is it a traditional way of teaching where it's mainly lecture-based with some tutorials? There's not many universities that do traditional anymore. You need to read up about these different methods and think about how you learn most effectively. Is it in groups? Is it on your own? Those kinds of things. The next thing, anatomy is a major part of your medical education. How the body works, how it's put together, how it functions, and then what does it look like when things go wrong, or what tests can you run when things go wrong. And so there are different ways of teaching anatomy. All of them are fine, but you might prefer certain ways. So some medical schools still do cadaveric dissection, where you have a cadaver, a deceased person who's donated their body for medical sciences, and you will learn about their anatomy by doing dissection in small groups. And then others do virtual dissection, or learning from models, or from kind of pieces of bodies that have been preserved and things like that. And so we don't do cadaveric dissection at Lancaster. We do this more virtual and modelling dissection, but you go to see post-mortem. So again, do you want to do dissection, or don't you, or are you not bothered, in which case it doesn't matter. Clinical experience. So when will you go into the clinic, and where will you go into the clinic? And so what I mean by that is some universities have early clinical experience, so they work on improving your patient skills very early on. So Lancaster's like that. So you start clinical placements from the second year, you start learning communication skills in the first year, whereas other universities do all the theory first, and then you start to learn your clinical stuff on placement in your final years of studying. And so you could want either way. You might want to get in with the patients, or you might want to do your studies first and then learn all the clinical stuff. And either way is fine, but again, something to think about. And so then the other thing to think about are the other focuses of that university department, which are usually easy to find from their website because they'll be showing off about it. So do they focus on communication skills? So I think Lancaster's more of a holistic, we want you to be a good doctor with overall patient care. So lots of knowledge, but also effective at communicating with a good knowledge of all the other factors, the social, psychological factors that influence a person's health. Other universities might focus on research, the scientific research. So you might do wet lab projects like biochemical labs, things like that. And so it's just up to you what type of focus you want for your degree. So then the other thing, can you apply to that university? What subjects do they require? What grade requirements? And then whether or not that admissions test is the UCAT or the BMAT. And then finally, make sure you're picking universities which suit your needs. Medicine and studying any kind of professional course is hardcore. You know, it's lots of hours in the clinic where you're learning on the job, but there's also theory to learn, as I said before. And so make sure you're going to be studying somewhere where you want to be, in a location that you want to be in. Do you want to be really far away from your family so you don't have to see them, or do you want to be really close to them so that you can pop home at the weekend, take your washing back and have a home cooked meal? What other extracurricular activities are offered by the universities? Universities offer a lot, so just check that those are things that will help you to relax when you do have some downtime. Okay, so then just finally, resources. Medical Schools Council, really important website. If you're thinking about not studying for medicine but studying for another professional course, then go onto their professional bodies pages and look for applying to study nursing and midwifery, or to become a paramedic, because they will have resources available to you. So go onto those pages as your first port of call to find what resources are available for potential applicants for those things. And then resources, so we have a nice prospectus which you can download for Lancaster University, which talks through all the different aspects of the university, has a timetable in it actually, so you can think about what you would be studying each year and kind of think about whether that's what you want, or whether you want to study somewhere else. Okay, so that's it. So I'll take questions, and whilst I'm doing that, there was a summary which comes up in lots of different orders. Basically, reflect on what you've learnt, because it's the reflection that's important, the reflection on your skills. Make sure you do your homework well in advance. Start that now. What places do you want to apply to? Check the admissions requirements. Don't waste an application for somewhere that actually you don't meet their minimum requirements, because they just will reject you straight away. They won't consider you. There's too many applications for these subjects. And then practice your admissions test before you sit them. You do need to practice that. And then Joe, I see you've come on. So what I'm going to do is, whilst people are coming up, all I'm going to do is share my screen so that I can, let me just stop presenting, so that I can just show those websites I was talking about on my other screen.
Brilliant. Thanks. Yeah, thanks so much, Nicola. That was just so comprehensive.
Oh, good.
And no, really, really useful. I mean, every time I listen to some of these talks, I learn something new. But I think the main point is that, you know, there's actually so much out there at the moment, whether it's volunteering, you know, or some of the virtual experiences. So, you know, you can get started, students, on these virtual experiences straight away. But the other point is you have to be proactive. A lot of the time, those experiences are not going to come to you. So I get emailed a lot saying, can you find me a work experience placement in such and such? It's like, well, you know, I can tell you what's out there, but you also need to make those speculative applications and you know, and put yourself forward. And the other thing I just wanted to kind of also say that, you know, I really like the idea, again, this is something I say constantly, that you're doing these experiences definitely not as a tick box exercise. I think that's a really good way of thinking about it, because you know, by doing those experiences, you actually figure out whether this is the profession for you. I mean, you do not want to be, I think if it's not the profession for you, you get sussed out in the interview process anyway. But you know, what you don't want to do is find yourself in a long, you know, a career that's going to take you a long time to qualify compared to other degree courses, and is intense. So you've got to kind of make sure that the job at the end of it is something that suits your, you know, like Nicola said, your values. So yeah, I totally you know, agree with a lot of, you know, with all of what you said today.
Good to know we're on the same page.
Yeah.
So if can you see that screen there, Jo?
Yes, can.
Perfect. So all I'm showing here is that Medical Schools Council webpage. So if you see here, I'm hovering above the studying medicine part, and I'm just going down. There's resources for teachers and applicants. And so if we click that, this is all of those info sheets. So understanding medicine, what makes a good doctor, work experience, entry routes, differences between medical schools, entry requirements. So all important things which would be really helpful. So you can download the info sheet, and actually they've made a lot of videos this year. And you can see here for work experience, I know that writing is going to be really small, but it says info sheet, video and COVID-19 guidance. So that's where the Medical Schools Council explains that, and also has the links for those virtual experiences that you can use. If you see over here, there's an entry requirements comparison tool. So instead of having to look at every single medical school's website, you can click on this and then you can compare the different medical schools' entry requirements and see whether or not the qualifications you have are useful. And then when I was talking about the values, attributes needed to study medicine, that thing you can download, which talks about all those different values and really breaks them down, you can click that here. Okay, the next bit, here's our website, and this will be similar to lots of other universities' websites. We think we're all different, but really they're all very similar. But there'll be a mixture of videos, explanations about the course, explanations about, so this is our gateway year. So if you do the foundation year or the access to medicine program for our widening participation students, and then this also contains all the information then about scrolling down, so course details, so how we study, how we teach you, entry requirements, how you would apply, and then if you're international, because those are different. And here's that brochure I was talking about, which is quite a good read, although the physical copies obviously never went out because we stopped seeing people last year. Here's that Observe GP. So if you type Observe GP into Google, you can get access to this, to the videos that you can watch about different GP experiences. The interactive platform, so it tells you a bit more about what to do. So pop along to there and work through that. And this is the Brighton and Sussex Medical Schools virtual work experience. So again, if you just Google that, Brighton and Sussex Medical School work experience, you will go immediately to this page. And so you register, click here to get started, you register with them. So you need to give them some details about yourself to register, because you get access to their online platform. But you don't have to finish a course if you don't want to get the certificate. You might just sort of dip in and out of it, but probably getting to the end actually would be good if you are thinking of applying, because you can tell us then that you've completed it, which shows something about your motivation. Okay, that's all I wanted to share. Are there any questions?
Yeah, do put your questions in the chat. I mean, just to say about that Brighton and Sussex, obviously you don't have to necessarily be applying to Brighton and Sussex to do that experience. It's just something they've developed. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I think
otherwise we probably wouldn't advertise it.
Yeah. I think some students have taken advantage also of a scheme, Medic Mentor, which is another virtual work experience placement scheme. I think it's called Medic Mentor. I don't know if some students have enrolled on that are on this call, but yeah, so we've got a few minutes just to answer any questions. So yeah, if you've got any questions, put them in the chat.
Otherwise, have a look through the resources, and if you have questions, so we'll have open days over the summer. They'll be they'll probably be virtual. We'll probably have some virtual, and maybe towards the end of the summer there might be some actual. You can come up to Lancaster, but it's a long way away from you guys, so you probably would only want to come up if you're thinking about applying to us. But those virtual ones, I think most universities will offer those this year, and that will be a way for you to ask those questions, to speak to admissions tutors and other students. Oh, thanks, Neil.
Yeah, I've just to say that on that note, we've organised a virtual careers and HE fair for the 23rd of June, and I'm 99% sure. I'm pretty sure Lancaster's signed up to it, but I will double check. So that's where again students can chat directly with, it's almost the same as being in person. They can chat to kind of people on this. I think Lancaster have signed up. I'm pretty sure you have.
Well, that's a really good idea. Gosh, schools and colleges are being proper innovative at the moment. And do you know where it's possible to get information about access courses? Thinking of doing one after college, but I'm not too sure where to start looking. So, Dilla, is this like an access course to study medicine?
Yeah, Dillo, I think there's kind of two. Oh, sorry, for midwifery. I think Dillo is probably best for that inquiry. I think if you book an appointment with one of the careers teams here, I mean, if it's for mid. Yeah, I think it's probably best. It's a bit more complicated than that. So just book an appointment with one of the careers advisors. I'll put the link in the chat in a minute, and we can sort of talk through that. Yeah. Are you based at the Centre for Applied Sciences, Dilla? Or Holloway? Or Angel? But whilst Dilla's answering that, Angel, brilliant. Okay.
Yeah, Rojan. So GCSE's being cancelled. Yeah, predicted grades are the minimum. So for Lancaster, we look for the minimum. So if you meet our minimum academic requirements, then that's it. You tick that box, and then we look at your BMAT score, and then we have kind of a cut-off for the BMAT score, and everyone who's above the certain threshold then gets invited to interview. And we don't look at those GCSE grades or that BMAT score after that. We just look at your interview score, and we make offers based on that. Other universities might give a grading system for GCSE, so they'll have a minimum set, but they might award points for each kind of 9 or 8 or 7 or whatever, and then you'll get a score for your GCSEs, you'll get a score for your admissions test, and you might get a score for your interview. And they might not be worth, so they might not be worth 33% for your overall score. It might be that your GCSEs are worth 10% or 50% or whatever, and those can get added together to do your ranking. So for those types of universities, yeah, because medicine's competitive, having lower or just meeting the minimum threshold might mean that you're lower down. But if you get invited to interview and you get a great admissions test score, then that will pull you up. And so what you need to do is just think about the universities that you want to apply to. This is why you need to do it early. Think about the universities you want to apply to, what medical schools are and how you want to learn, so that you can then at least do a short list of maybe 10 universities, then look up their admissions thing and kind of think about which ones are you going to be competitive at. So say Lancaster, it won't matter as long as you meet our threshold, then you're still competitive. And what universities do they score you by GCSE, in which case you'll be less competitive. If you really want to apply to that university still, that's okay, but just know that if you apply to 4 really competitive ones, you stand less chance of being offered a place. So maybe pick one really competitive one which you really want to go to, but you know it might be tough for you to get in, and then for the others pick different admissions criteria and go by that. So that's what I would suggest you do.
I mean, and also just to add to that, it might be that, Rojan, that you look at the foundation years available for medicine as well, like the Gateway course at Lancaster, but there's also University of East Anglia have got one, King's have got one. I think most universities have got them now, haven't they?
So those are usually for wine-in participation applicants. So Rojan, it would depend on your background, and different universities have different wine-in participation requirements. So first in family, kind of family's income, where you took your GCSEs. So if your school performed sort of below average nationally for GCSEs, then they might take that into account. So yeah, have a look up those. Not all of them will be wine-in participation courses. Some of them won't be, but yeah, like Joe says, you just need the knowledge, the information. Adam, bit off topic, how freely can people work as a medical worker in a foreign country? Oh right, so at the end, so now we've gone into Brexit, I guess it's less easy to work in Europe compared to what it would be. So you're studying, if you study medicine, you will take our country's kind of instruction on how to perform medicine or work as a medic in our NHS. If doctors from abroad come to work for us, they need to take an exam, and we need to judge that the qualification and the experience they have meets our requirements. So it depends upon the country that you go to whether or not they accept a UK qualification as a kind of equivalent to how they train their medics, or whether they would require you to take some other kind of assessment before. Most medical degrees have an elective where in one summer holiday you can apply to go and practice medicine, although you're not qualified by that point, so you're not actually practicing medicine properly by that point, but you can go abroad and have sort of 6 weeks abroad to learn about a healthcare system in a different country. But if you want to work in another country, you'll have to look up that country's kind of visa requirements and all those other things, so it's a bit more complicated. I hope that answers your question, Adam. 7, this might already be asked. A-level chemistry needed to study medicine at Lancaster? No, so our requirements, we changed them recently. You need to have 2 out of 3 A-levels as our core A-levels, so biology, chemistry or psychology, plus another A-level in another subject, and we don't care what that subject is. Our offer for entry onto our medicine course is AAA. And then if you can offer us an additional qualification, so it used to be an AS level, but most colleges I think aren't offering those anymore, or an EPQ, so the extended project qualification, then that offer would be dropped down to AAB plus a B in the EPQ or the AS level. If you are from a widening participation background, we have a contextualised offer scheme, so you'd need to be predicted those grades, but if you were successful at interview and we were going to offer you a place, then we would drop our offer, so we offer you a dual offer of 3 A's or AAB depending on what your qualifications are, plus a BB as a contextual offer that's lowered for our widening participation applicants, sorry, where are my words? But you would need to accept us as your firm choice, and lots of different universities do that. So if you're from a widening participation background, just look up the universities you're interested in and what their criteria are, and then what they'll offer you. No problem, Adam. So what is the average amount of free time you get while studying medicine? So in the first year, so it kind of depends on how good you are at, how effective and organised you are, I think. So first years, we have some first years who get all their work done really, really quickly and then have loads of free time. And then we have some who are just constantly studying because they find it difficult to concentrate, or they just haven't got the correct learning habits. And so they develop those over the first year. But there is time in the first year, especially when you're living on campus, to take part in societies and to do other things. When you start in the second year, you're 2 days on placement plus your 2 days on campus, and then you have a 4th day which you would usually be at home studying, or you might be on a community placement, so out in a sexual health clinic or community mental health or at a GP's. And so then it starts to get a bit tricky, and I think then you get used to it, and you get used to kind of being in the new hospital environment, which sort of drains you for the 3rd year, and you kind of have a little bit more free time. But I think medics, it's a full-on course. There's not that much time outside of it. It's not some other courses you might have whole days where you're not on campus studying. Medicine's not like that. There'll be some, you'll be needing to work every day. Cool. So I think we've covered all the questions.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, thank you so much, Nicola. That's just so helpful. And as I say, we've recorded it, and I think it'd be really good to share this with. We have a Medic Link group at the Sixth Form College where students get together. A bit like what you were saying actually about students getting together and discussing kind of medical issues and things. So it'd be really good to share this with them and the teacher that runs that course as well. So
that'd be great.
Yeah, brilliant.
And so, Jo, the other thing to mention then, so if anyone is thinking about applying to medicine, is that I run different kind of workshops. So preparing for the biomedical admissions test workshop, and also problem-based learning, so kind of an introduction into what problem-based learning is. And I can run them specifically for colleges if you have enough people who are interested in coming along. We also run them just as an event that people can sign up for. So what I'll do is I'll send you the link when we start to organise those, and if anyone's interested, interesting, feel free to sign up and we can talk to them about that.
I'm sure we would definitely have interest for that. I think that would be amazing. I'm sure students, you'd like those sessions, wouldn't you? Preparing for the BMAT and UKCAT and everything. I won't bother. I won't wait to answer. I know that they would find it useful.
Yeah.
But yeah, brilliant. So thank you. Yeah, there you go. Definitely would. Yeah, you go. You got 7.
No problem at all. I hope that's helpful for everybody.
Yeah, fabulous.
Take care and good luck with everything, with your applications and things.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Nicola.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye bye.